I apologize in advance because I'm sure everyone watching this is sick to death. So half of you are sick to death and half of you are on the edge of your seats.
We're going to talk about the Ghostbusters movie.
That's right. That'll come up next. You got one syllable correct. Pokemon Go, the craze that's been sweeping the nation and
world.
Yes, the world. You've seen it talked about on CNN, on Twitter, your Facebook feeds, everywhere that you go. You've seen it in the streets.
Or you haven't because you're too busy playing it.
That too, and you've got hit by a car because you're looking at your phone. So we thought, what better way to capitalize on a phenomenon than try to force it into our discussion of expertise on this podcast?
Which is a little okay because we tend to bring up video games a lot. And
Digital
apps.
and virtual reality and AR. So if you don't know what Pokemon Go is, you walk around with your phone and you see a little Pokemon.
What's wrong with you?
And you can catch them. And it's alternate reality, meaning you're looking at a camera, but it looks like something's there. So I guess what this discussion leading from that is do we think there's a place in the board game world for that kind of a mechanic to happen?
Let's be, first off, in terms of popularity, it's going to be very unlikely because I would say at least 75% of this is just people being like, oh, Pokemon. Like, it's just the brand name is so big.
You're saying it just wouldn't catch on any other way?
Like, I think Pokemon is the only thing that this can get away with this.
Certainly to this
extent.
extent.
Put that aside, mechanics. Could those come to a board game? And I think they obviously could in a weird way because I think it would be more like geocaching, in which you're using your phone to find clues and stuff. I remember...
Which this game is a lot like.
Yes. Well, it sort of reminds me of, because I think it was just a rip-off of, a TV show, I don't know if you've ever watched it or not, called Numbers.
I know about it, I haven't watched it.
Well, one of the episodes was about, it was actually like a Warcraft game, but they would have these challenges of AR, in which they'd go out and have to like find these hidden like logos and scan them and stuff.
Okay.
And there actually were people would have boxes to show who was there, and they're like, oh, the ace of spades, that's obviously Sword Killer 995 or something. But like they'd actually be famous people. But like I imagine it'd be a little bit more like that. It'd be like a competition with these spots.
Well, then I guess my response to that is that different from what Pokemon Go is? And if not, what? Like, because
Are you saying how would it be different?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, what is the line between board game and not a board game? Because I feel like
No, I think that's
when you get into the AR stuff, you are kind of blurring that.
Well, I think one of the things that could happen.
What makes it
another
a
thing
tabletop game, I guess,
would be taking mechanics of tabletop game and putting it on phone. Like, what if there was a sort of like you go to your park. And we come along with you because obviously you need your dungeon friends for this. And there's a sticker. You all scan, and you're like, is this your group? Click, and someone has AR'd the park into a dungeon where you actually go in and you roll dice against things.
Oh, wow.
So like
That's
people
cool.
actually, so unlike Pokemon, which is like, oh, there's a Pokemon, like, and maybe the Pokestop, someone designs, or maybe they design, like actual real life dungeons, so to speak.
That sounds amazing. Well, you know what it makes me think
It's
of?
the AR version of the VR dungeons, I'm saying.
You remember the game that we played, This House is Haunted?
Yes.
That's sort of, like you can kind of do that where you have cards, you put cards in different rooms of your actual home or wherever you are, or even like 2 rooms in a boom. You know, these games where part of the game is actually moving around a space. And it's basically just instead of cards, you have a phone. And that's kind of, that's kind of cool. It is a little weird about, is that a tabletop game still?
Well, I was thinking like you'd actually have dice and roll and.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's definitely, like, and I think the other big one for card game AR, this one probably won't work with a phone. This will only happen if we get something similar to Google Glass coming around. Would actually be like, I mean, we've already seen it in cartoons, like something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where like we're still playing a board game, but you know, when I'm sitting and I play my card, you literally see the creature come out of the card.
Well, I'm glad that you brought this up because we should mention there are, at least in my mind,
well, there was
two.
That I don't know if it lasted. The PlayStation one.
Oh, I see. That's true. No, but I'm thinking even more recently. Well, first there's the world of Yoho, Remember
Right,
the pirate game
right.
where you actually use the phone and see a boat on the board? So that's one application of it where you're sitting. Then remember there's the Hologrid game, the Star Wars
Right.
chess game that is coming out and does use AR. You actually need your phone.
I think there are
to
two
look at
differences
it.
then. We can see AR hit board games. There's what you're saying, in which I say the AR is brought to the board.
Yeah.
When the other one I'd say is the board is brought to the AR world. Like the one I suggest with the dungeon is people going outside,
Yeah.
and that's more closer to Pokemon Go.
I do think that is the distinction. That's what makes Pokemon Go what it is not necessarily the AR. It is
No,
the
honestly,
fact you
I
can turn
play
it off.
it,
Yeah,
and I turn it off.
It's the fact that you are going out somewhere. The AR is part of it, but that's really the hook. And so maybe you could have a game. Maybe it's just like a game board, but like the space that you need to land on, you turn your phone on to look at it or something, and then you can see, like you're saying. But you could do it. You could do it as a dungeon, or you could do it as even a more traditional game.
Just you go in your parking seat. Why is everyone just standing awkwardly? And you take out your phone. Oh, it's chess.
You can see the chessboard, but that guy looks like a knight now to you.
And that's when someone just runs into like jogging middle of the field, like, he ruined the board.
I kind of like that idea though, and if you could like keep track, like if you were in a whole neighborhood or even a city, I don't know, and you could be like, oh, this block is this space, and I need to move to where they are.
The one thing I'm curious about how they deal in the board game, and this is where I think something I'm very curious in to where to watch how Pokemon Go handles it. If you don't know Pokemon Go, there are gyms, and once you reach a certain level, you can choose a team, one of 3 teams. Depending on which team you chose poorly, and you try to hold these gyms, and you get points for how longer you hold them. Though the truth is, you're going to get knocked out. And another problem is, depending on how much or little you play, you're going to go to your first gym and see there's like a guy twice the power of the guy, your best guy there. And you keep going around and you're going to see that. So if we do something and it has experience at all, how do you make it fair for maybe someone who can't play all the time and maybe goes out and even if it's cooperative, like going through a dungeon, he still feels he or she matters in the situation.
Well, I think the solution is you don't do that.
You don't?
Like you make it much more like a standalone, unless it was something like Descent style where you actually had a reoccurring group to level up with. I feel like you just say this is a new instance of the game. You start fresh every time. At least that's how I would approach it.
I think that's a fair idea, in particular because what you can do is, for example, let's take the park dungeon again. When it's built, these dungeons, because the park is laid out however it is, it's built less like, here's a dungeon for you to run through and you build experience, so now I'm a level 20 warrior running through it. It's more like, all right, here's the dungeon. You need 4 people. One's going to be a warrior, one's going to be a thief, one's going to be a wizard, and this one, you have an archer. There's going to be no healer. It's more of a puzzle.
Right.
So when you go through each thing, you have to decide how to play the level and see if you make it out.
I love it.
So I think
I'm ready.
that would definitely, I think, solve that problem. But that's definitely one to be curious because there are a lot of games that have experience, and that'd definitely be something that would attract people to being able to I beat the New York City dungeon. Now let's go to the Bronx dungeon. Now let's go to the Philly dungeon.
Yeah.
Now let's get robbed because we went to the guy who started the Pokestop.
Travel across country every dungeon.
Oh no, that's the Ticket to Ride game.
That's the AR ticket to ride. You actually have to travel and put your railroads down. You just see a giant yellow train.
No. I just imagine AR Catan like you're standing in a wheat field. Jonathan, you're in the woods. Yeah, you got wood? Yeah, I got wood.
Come on down. It's here. See? It's here.
No. Let's be honest though. I'd be calling Jonathan. You got sheep, and you'd be like, yeah, I got sheep.
Arkham Horror. You're just there's a
that one
terrifying monster behind you.
That one would be interesting, but I actually think Arkham Horror, I'd like to see on VR. But I think that's not a discussion for this.
It is.
podcast.
There is a lot of crossover between the two for sure. But
yeah.
The difference is you can't leave the house with
yes,
VR.
This is actually not the place to have that discussion. But there are plenty of fantastic videos to watch that tell the difference between the two. One I think excels over the other. But and I mean this really is one of the biggest. This is the biggest. I mean, I'm trying to think if there are any other really big AR games before Pokemon.
Certainly not near this level.
So it's definitely going to set the ground in general for AR games.
I wouldn't be
surprised. And that's why I'm curious to see how they roll this out, like the gym thing, like with dealing with players of different experience levels. You know, I mean, the other one we didn't even talk about is on location. Like, I mean, the Pokemon Go, if you live in a dense, like more in a city or you're catching a lot, I live in the middle of nowhere. I don't see a lot of things.
Right.
So that's another thing you have to take into account.
This could be kind of like the WoW of AR games where like all these other MMOs afterwards kind of have to...
Actually, there are already 6.
Sets a precedent for it, yeah. Well, there was EverQuest too and other games, but whatever. But yeah, Pokemon Go, I think that certainly I'm sure a lot of board game companies are at the very least thinking about a way they could implement this, if not actually taking steps to do it. I mean, we've already seen little steps in that direction.
I wouldn't even say board game companies per se, but like...
Even Kickstarter people, indie people.
Yeah, I mean, but even like, you know, I'm Sony.
You are?
Yeah. No, like, if I'm Sony, I'm like, oh, what's popular? Oh, D&D's popular. We've, like, you know, I think that we're not...
Every company is studying, because this is a phenomenon right now.
No, I think absolutely you're right. We're going to hit the World of Warcraft thing with this. But more importantly, we're definitely going to see, I think even what I'm more interested in is like not even like the game issues, but just the social issues. Like everyone's saying, and I don't disagree with them, that, you know, they're going out, they're having more fun for the first time. Some people have like said they didn't leave their house for 6 months, they had anxiety, and this is the first time leaving. But we're also hearing people almost getting shot, going on properties because they thought someone was there to rob them. You know, people getting robbed. We made a joke. Cars crashes. Like, I made a joke, but I think in all seriousness, I actually read an article about this. Like, lawyers are like drooling about this. Like, they're thinking like all the crazy ways that this is just gonna go nuts in like court cases.
Yeah, new laws have to be established.
And I sort of made a joke that there's gonna be DWP, driving under the influence of Pokemon Go. But in all seriousness, I think there might be something, and I think AR is gonna be the issue. And this is not even including. I mean, it was turned off, but I do think we're eventually going to see Google Glass become a more standard thing.
Or something
of the equivalent,
like that,
yes.
Yeah.
So, and
HoloLens.
You know, God knows that's how much better that game would be if you were like that.
Yeah.
So this is definitely something to keep an eye out for, not just because it's Pokemon.
Well, we'll see you in a week when no one plays this game anymore.